In a world that rewards mediocrity through endless streams of distraction and stimulation, focus, true focus, is a lost art and an essential component of getting stupid rich, escaping a life of mediocrity. You see, the amount of money that you make in your life is directly proportional with your ability to focus and take action on one thing over a prolonged period of time. And so within this lesson, I will explain how you reliably achieve a state known as hyperfocus, which is simply the pinnacle of focused action, which makes achieving your financial goals or any goals in life feel effortless. But let me tell you, in the spirit of focus, if you cannot pay attention to this short lesson, this whole making money thing isn't going to be for you. So you've got to give yourself a chance. Now, if you're new here, I always like to define things before I talk about them, because what I find is I get confused very easily when people don't know what the fuck they're actually talking about. They don't actually define and no one's on the same page. And so what does focus mean? When I talk about focus, I'm talking about concentrated energy. When you focus on something in the form of attention through the mind, you are concentrating your energy. And so by extension, hyperfocus is the pinnacle of this. It's concentrating your energy, which is just your attention, for a long period or a prolonged period of time with intensity. And the reality is, the vast majority of you watching this are not nearly as focused or productive as you think you are, because I've been there. I guarantee what's taking you a week could be done in a morning. You see, fortune favors speed, and with hyperfocus we can do more in less time. And that's what we're trying to achieve. And so the next valid question is, okay, how does one become more focused? That's why I clicked on this video. Well, it's important that we kind of touch on the surface level things. If you're new here, I like to go deep. I like to unveil new insights that you probably haven't seen before because they've come from the dome. But it's important that you get the basic stuff right. I'm sure you've seen this in a million other videos, which is why I'll go through it in a minute. Number one, your diet has to be dialed in. What you put in is what you're going to get out. You see, your brain, which is where we're going to be allocated, where the energy is being allocated from, that attention, is the most calorifically demanding organ in the body. And so the energy that you give it is the energy it's going to give out. And so if you're eating complete crap, you're going to get crap out. So diet, whole foods, balanced macros and micronutrients, along with good hydration. This is obvious, but a lot of people neglect this. Basic insight number 2, get your sleep right. I don't know how many times someone needs to tell you this. If you're not sleeping 7, 8, 9 hours, whatever you need, you are missing, you're leaving so much on the table. You are not being more productive by sleeping less. You are being less productive because you're getting so much less done in the time that you've gained. You're not getting a net gain from sleeping less. I've learned that lesson the hard way. Sleep as much as you need to sleep. And make sure it's high quality. I'm not going to go into how you get good sleep, but just make sure your sleep's dialed in, because ultimately that's when you're recharging your brain and your body. And if you're not charging your brain properly, it's not going to output properly. You're not going to be able to focus properly. Basic insight number 3, make sure that you're working out. And I'm not talking about lifting weights. Most of you probably go to the gym, you're getting jacked, whatever. That's fine. But where the brain really needs work is cardio. I know a lot of people kind of get a little bit scared when you say the word cardio, but it's important. Your brain health relies on cardio, and if you're not doing any form of exercise at all, you're leaving money on the table in terms of the amount you can focus. Basic insight number 4, make sure that you're allocating dopamine properly. Now, I've seen some people talk about this thing called dopamine loading, and I guess this is what it is. Make sure that you're stacking the boring things you have to do in the day, including your work, and your breaks are boring as well. And then you stack the things that release a lot of dopamine, whether it's stimulation, social media of any kind, at the end of the day after you finish the work, because if you spike dopamine before you start work, it's going to be very difficult to focus. Now, those 4 things people stack into an hour-long video. That's the basic insights. They're basic, but a lot of people neglect them. And if you're not doing them, what I'm going to go into later is not going to be valuable. So you've got to get those 4 right, get them dialed in. But okay, they're basic, you've heard them before. but I'm still not achieving a level of focus that I know I could be. So how do I focus even more beyond where I'm at right now? Well, good question. A difficult question to answer. And when I find it's difficult to answer a question, I go back to a quote that I heard from Charlie Munger, who's the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, an investment group, works very closely with Warren Buffett, who I'm sure you've heard of. And he says, invert, always invert. If you're unsure of what option to take the thing that you're trying to do and invert it. So we're trying to get more focus. The inversion of focus is distraction. And you just do less of that inversion, because if you do that, automatically, you're going to be more focused if you're eliminating distractions. Because the reality is, most of you can access levels of focus which is sufficient for what you're trying to achieve, but you're just too distracted. And so if we can eliminate that distraction from the aversion, we can be a whole lot more focused by default. I hope that makes sense. And so distractions come in two forms. You have internal distractions and external distractions. And so I'll explore both and how we eliminate both. And so let's get into it. Number one, internal distractions, which is arguably the most significant one, and actually why the majority of people struggle to focus, or why it feels so hard to get things done. You see, internal distractions, what do I mean by that? It's the chatter in your brain. It's the proclivity that you have to get unconsciously and compulsively lost in thought. You see, when you try to work, you're trying to allocate your attention towards a task that is in front of you. By default, I guarantee that your brain is getting lost in thoughts of the past or the future or just complete fantasy. From some sort of evolutionary programming, everybody gets lost in compulsive thought. You cannot help it. Thought is like this process. It's like a beating heart. It will always be there. You will always have random thoughts that carry your attention away. And when a thought takes your attention away from the present moment, away from the task, you have been distracted. That distraction is limiting your productivity. It's limiting your focus, because that concentrated energy is now being split. And so that is a massive issue. People compulsively get lost in thought, in the past, in the future, and all these sorts of illusions of thought. It's very difficult to actually focus when you're getting lost and you're pulling on these strings of thought. You ever notice when you read a book and you're reading and then you keep reading, and then 5 minutes later you realize, I haven't recalled, or I haven't actually read anything that I've gone through. I have been reading, but I don't recall any of it, because you weren't focusing. You were lost in thought in some way. And that happens in everything that you're doing. Right now, as you watch this video, you're battling your attention. Your mind is trying to take you away in different thoughts, and you're trying to battle for focus on this video. And so what we need to train is something that I call metacognitive return. This is how we overcome and eliminate this distraction of thought. Metacognitive return has two steps. The first one's metacognition. Metacognition refers to, it's kind of thinking about thinking. It's this awareness of thinking. It's being aware of what you're actually thinking and feeling in a given time period, because the reality is, if you're not consciously being metacognitive, you are kind of subconsciously thinking and feeling. They're kind of on the surface level. You know the thoughts are coming in and out, but you don't know exactly what they are. And so how do we know if thoughts are the biggest distraction that we're getting pulled away from? We need to be aware of them. And so the first step is becoming aware of the fact that you've been distracted, the fact that you've been pulled away from the task at hand. And the second step is simply to return to the present moment. That's metacognitive return. Become aware that you've been distracted by thought and return to the present moment. In this case, allocating more energy, that energy being attention towards your task. That's what you need to do, metacognitive return. Now, this is easier said than done, because if you just sit in silence for 60 seconds, you'll notice that your mind is going to pull you in 100 different directions. It's chaos. And so it's difficult. And it's very easy to get distracted by thought. And so this is a muscle that you constantly got to be training, not just when you're working, when you're trying to focus on anything. And so you can start right now. Continue to try and focus on my words and what I'm trying to say. You'll notice that your mind will try to pull you in different directions. You've got to stay on the straight and narrow. Every time you notice that you get distracted, you pull yourself back with metacognitive return. Now, we can train metacognitive return in everything that we do in life, but there's a specific practice that we can do that can make it that can make us so much better at returning to the present moment and returning to the tasks that we are doing. And that is mindfulness meditation. It's very simple. I'm sure you've heard of it before. You sit in silence with your eyes closed and you focus on one thing. In this case, it can be your breath. This can be anything, but the easiest one is to do your breath. You focus on your breath, in, out, whatever. And then what you'll notice 10 seconds in is you lose focus that you had on the breath. You get distracted by thoughts. Then you practice that muscle of metacognitive return. You notice you're distracted and you return back to the breath. And that's one rep. And so what we want to do is just rep out metacognitive return. The reality is you're never going to be able to cease thinking. You're not going to be able to stop thinking. What we're trying to achieve is a state of awareness. And so instead of being pulled away by thoughts compulsively, we can be thinking in the background but still be focused on the task at hand. This is a state of flow. You've ever been in flow? You don't realize that you're even thinking in the background. It's happening, you're aware of it, but it's not carrying your attention or your focus because you're focused on that one thing. And the more you meditate, the more you practice mindfulness and metacognitive return, the more you can achieve this state of full awareness. And when you become awareness of thought, when you become aware of thought, you don't get carried away by it and you can focus on the task at hand. This is the biggest, this is the highest leverage thing that you can do. Most people think they have a short attention span. It's not actually the attention span. It's the fact that they're constantly being distracted. Now, it does come into relation of one thing. If you are constantly on social media, going through short form content, this is, okay, maybe it's ruining your attention span, but the main detrimental thing that it's doing to your focus is when you're on social media, you are compulsively getting lost in thought. It's breeding distraction within your mind. Your mind is creating distraction because it's one thing after another. You're constantly thinking and you don't realize you are because you're distracted on the social media, especially short form content. And so really one of the highest leverage things that I've ever done is just delete it, get rid of it. No consumption of short form content at all. Instagram, shorts, TikTok especially, these are rotting your brain. They are getting your brain used to being compulsively lost in thought. You see, if you're doing meditation but then you go straight into short form content, you're just counteracting the benefits that you got. It's like doing the opposite of meditation. It's scrambling your brain and you know it's bad for you and yet you keep doing it. And so if you actually are serious about changing your life, get rid of those apps. I'm not saying social media is bad. Stuff like YouTube, focusing on a valuable lesson like this where it's going to improve your life, but you actually have to focus on one thing for a prolonged period of time is powerful. So stuff like YouTube, movies, TV shows, just change the places where you find your entertainment and stimulation to stuff that you can train metacognitive return on, not something you get endlessly lost in distraction. Because that is what is fueling this endless compulsive thought, which is you're getting lost in that thought and therefore you can't focus. And so that's how we eliminate that distraction, that internal distraction of the mind, which is the reason it feels so hard to do work, or the reason it feels so hard to access focus is because your mind is pulling you in 100 different directions. And there's no question that the social media that you're consuming every single day is worsening that effect. And so get rid of it and start mindfulness meditation and practice that skill of metacognitive return to the present moment and continue to take action, and you'll be far more focused. You've eliminated that, well, you actually, in this case, you haven't eliminated the distraction, you've simply become aware of it and you've eliminated its power over you. If you become aware of thought, it won't carry you away, if that makes sense. And so that's the internal distraction, how you mitigate its distraction elements on you, and therefore if you're not distracted, by default you are focused. But there are more distractions that are outside of the mind. External distractions can take two forms. It can be digitally or physically. So you need to review your digital environment, your computer, your phone, where you're doing your work, and your physical environment, your home, your room, your kitchen, your house, your desk, your work area, and ask yourself the question, what does this environment encourage? What behavior does this encourage? You see, you need to audit your environment, your digital environment and your physical environment. And you need to basically eliminate all of the things that is encouraging distraction. Video games, if you're on your computer, if you've got social media right on your fingertips. If you've got that all, you've got to understand, what am I actually getting distracted by? Social media, or is it this, or is it the news, or is it this random like TV I've got in the kitchen? Get rid of it. If it's not helping you get towards the goal, get rid of it. What you need to do is design your environment in a way that makes focus easy. And that means eliminating all distractions. That means your computer, don't have any folders on your home screen. You should just have Chrome, maybe your files or anything important to work. Have everything that you need for work in front of you. Have everything required for work right in front of you. And so it's the obvious thing to do. Optimize your environment in a way that it makes work the easiest and the funnest and the most obvious thing to do. So make your desk nice and neat, make sure your room is clean, make sure your whole environment is clean. Because if your environment is chaotic, guess what? Your mind is chaotic. There are constant things pulling your attention and your focus. But if you can design your environment in a way that architects your focus towards one thing, which is your work, which is the task and the actions that you need to take towards your goal, you're going to be so much more focused because you have eliminated those external distractions. The big ones, of course, are going to be social media, having video games or like TV in your work area, or your desk being messy or cluttered. All of these sorts of things are distracting you. Anything on your desk that is distracting you, get rid of it. And from that area, you remove the distractions. By default, we have focus. And so we're removing distractions internally, we're removing distractions externally. Without distraction, the default state is focus, and you can enjoy that. But make sure not to neglect the 4 basic points that I went over. If your diet or sleep or you're not exercising, you're leaving money on the table with focus. But once you've done that, eliminate the internal distractions and the external distractions, and you have no choice but to focus. That's the power of inversion. I hope you found this valuable. Godspeed.